Yo people, hope you're all doing well and welcome to a new video. So I've been on holiday for the last 2 weeks, so unfortunately I haven't been able to upload any updates from my previous 6.2 preparation video. So this is what this video will be used for. I'll just talk about some of the things that went well, some of the things that didn't, and how much gil that I managed to make in the process. I'll also highlight some ways that you can still make a ton of gil right now. So I did have my laptop with me whilst I was away, so I was able to log in and do some basic things just like crafting a bit and restocking my retainers and also just doing some price changes, etc. So I did manage to get some screenshots for things that had been selling as the days went on after patch release. So yeah, let's get more into detail. So first, let's talk about the crafting, gathering, food and potions. So this was a big one. In my previous video, I mentioned that I'd be stocking up on the calamari foods along with the raw materials for the patch release, just in case that they were required for the bisque crafts. And in fact, they were. So if you did the same, then congratulations, because the calamaris alone had shot up to around 30k each on patch release day just on my server. I'd stockpiled a ton of these, so a huge stop here. The gathering and the crafting foods both were selling for around 30 to 40k each at the time, which is just crazy considering from one calamari you're basically getting 3 of the foods back. So imagine if you had purchased calamaris for around 3k as they were a few weeks ago, and then crafting those into the foods, you'd basically be turning that into 90k profit. So yeah, just an insane amount of profit, to be honest. Again, congrats to everyone that managed to make a lot of gil off of those. Also, the cunning craftsman's jorts had shot up in price as well as we got closer to patch day. I was consistently selling these for around 2.5k each, which was more than double what I had gotten them for. After patch day, they had shot up to around 4k each for around a day or two, and so we made a huge profit here. If you had stockpiled on the mats for these, they also went up in price massively. So yeah, congrats to anyone that managed to stock up on these beforehand. Next, let's talk about the immutable solutions. So with the immutable solutions, they actually had a huge spike and dip and then spiked again. So a few days prior to the patch releasing, the prices of these on my server went up to around 8 to 9k each, which was higher than what I had predicted, which was 7k. So I had to sell most of the solutions at this point. When the patch released, we were all surprised to find that these solutions were not actually required in crafting at Alkehes, which were predicted. So they dipped massively in price as people were just trying to sell them off as quickly as possible. These dipped to literally around 1 to 2k in price for about a day or two, so I decided to buy a few hundred of these as I didn't really understand why people were selling these, as they're used in pack to make crafting and gathering gear, which a lot of people would still be buying this early on in the patch. And as we can see, over the last 2 to 3 days, the prices of these have shot back up. So yeah, congrats to anyone that managed to sell during the peak and then buy during the dip again. So I also managed to make a huge profit with pre-crafted materials, and I will talk more about this later in the video. But the pre-craft required for the combat gear along with the pack maker sets have netted some massive gil. Things like Eblan Dambarite, for example, went from 12k each to around 60k each and are still quite high in price now. Same thing with the Hanish fibers, and to be honest, these aren't really that hard to make at all. Also, other pre-craft materials that were used in the new combat gear also netted massive profits if you were able to make them. So all material had gone up by quite a bit, especially the gathering material, which went up to around 20 to 30k each. This was due to the high stat requirement for the new nodes that were released, so if you managed to buy into these beforehand, then well done. Personally, I didn't buy enough of the gathering materials as I would have liked, but I did stockpile on the crafter and the combat gear material. So yeah, still managed to make some profits on the material. Next, let's talk about the Aether Sands. So all of the Aether Sands had gone up in price as well, not as much as I thought they would aside from the Moonlights, but significant amount to make a good amount of profit. The Moonlights are the most required right now as they're used in multiple crafts, so these have steadily increased and are sitting at around 3k each on my server right now. We managed to make a big profit on these going into 6.2, but I also kept a lot for personal use. Raw materials were also another huge profit if you managed to stockpile on these beforehand. Multiple materials needed for various crafts had shot up in price as expected. For example, the Buchanan saps that are used in rarefied jorts for white script hand-ins went up to around 3 to 4k each. Previously, they were at around 400 to 500 gil each. Raw Eblan and also Thavnarian corn had gone up to around 4k each. Everything became super expensive, so if you managed to stockpile any of these prior, then yeah, there would have been some big profit to be made here. So I also managed to stockpile on some of the crystals, and I think that crystals are quite underrated in terms of how much profit you can actually make from them. These had blown up in price on release date and had gone up to around 4 times in price. The price now has dropped quite a bit, but there are still some that are a bit more expensive than they were before, such as the lightning clusters. These are also still more expensive than they were a few weeks before patch. So if you stockpiled on these, then congrats. Okay, so now let's talk about something that didn't go quite as well. So the dyes didn't do as well as I had thought. I had purchased around 20 of each and basically just broke even on them. I could have technically kept them for longer, but I decided to sell them off due to not wanting to hold too much gil in the dyes. I think the reason that these probably didn't do as well is because most people may have just purchased dyes from the MOG station, and maybe many people would have invested in the dyes to sell them on the release day. So basically not enough demand for them and too much supply. But breaking even isn't a bad thing, so we move on. So now that we're a week into 6.2, I just wanted to talk about some things that you can do right now to still make a lot of gil. Most of these will be crafting and gathering related, but I will mention one at the end which requires only combat. So number one will be immutable solutions. If you still have a lot of material left for purple script crafting, then just craft those and purchase the solutions with the scripts. These are selling like hotcakes still, as the solutions, as mentioned before, are needed for pact maker sets, which people are still buying right now. Currently, immutable solutions are around 4 to 5k each, and I don't think that this will decrease anytime soon. Up until yesterday, they were still selling for around 7k each. Number two, pre-craft materials. So find a pre-craft material that you can get the mats for and just farm it. For example, I have been selling a ton of Eblan Dambarites for between 40 to 50k each, same with the Hanish fibers. The material cost for these, if you're buying it all from the market board, is less than around 10k, so you're profiting 40k plus from each craft. If you check the market board, they are still selling for a lot and consistently, but I don't think that they will stay at this price for very long, so make the most of this whilst you still can. I'm not going to list every single material that you can profit from, but if you just look at some of the pre-craft materials needed for the new combat gear or even the crafting gear, you will probably be able to see how you can make a lot of profit. Number three, let's talk about crafting and gathering food. So crafting and gathering food are still going to be very much needed, so these are a consistent way that you can continue to make gil throughout the patch. Although a lot of people will be doing this, they do get bought out very quickly, so you can continue to make a steady income with these. If you enjoy fishing, then you could also go out and get the calamaris yourself to save you having to buy them from the market board. Number four, alcohols and raid food and potions. So as the savage raids have started to kick in, potions have started to pick up and sell. Potions are and always will be a great way to make a steady income, so you can hard focus these if you really want to. Alcohols too will be good, as gear will still be needed for a while, so you could also craft a few of these at a time to put up on the market board. You can also target some new raid tier foods and sell a ton of those as well, as they will be much needed throughout this patch. Again, I'm not going to tell you exactly which ones, as it will be too easy for you, but just have a look through the list and see which one sells for the most and most consistently. And lastly, for those who are not crafters, you can easily just farm the astronomy tomes and purchase the tome mats from the vendor in Radzatan to sell on the market board. My personal advice, if you want the mats to sell quick, would be to purchase the Palaka mistletoes, and that's because they are used in crafting the potions, which should have a higher demand than the other mats. It might be best to just check which one's selling for the highest amount at the time that you're looking to buy them, and then just sell those. So just to go over some of the numbers, I did some number crunching earlier, and overall I had made just over 46 mil in the first few days of patch release. So a very profitable patch, considering we only started prepping 3 weeks prior and did not spend much at all. I really do hope that many of you that had seen my previous 6.2 prep video early on managed to also make some huge profits. So yeah, that about wraps up the video. I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on 6.2, which I wanted to do earlier, but as mentioned, I've been away since the 18th and only got back last night. I do have some more video ideas for the next couple of weeks, so if you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe and stay tuned for more content. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.